So Nick Cooper is the Chief Executive Officer of Ophir Energy, and he joins us here today at the Oil Council's Africa Assembly. Welcome, Nick.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
And Nick, Ophir were one of the bright stories, I think, in 2012, in the London market at least. Your first 12 months as a listed company, you had, I think, a perfect exploration record, over 6, 7, 8 wells. Why don't you tell us what you've been doing so far in the first 6 months of 2013?
Well, we've continued to drill. We've had non-stop drilling activity through the period. It's probably not been as dramatic as some of the equity market would like, although we've seen a lot of support for the company. We raised a lot of money in early March, about $835 million, which is one of the biggest raises in the sector in the last decade. So there's still a lot of support for the company, but we've been more in an appraisal mode and a satellite exploration mode rather than a play finding mode for the first half of the year. We've seen good flow tests out of both the tertiary and the Cretaceous horizons in Tanzania, which have really vindicated not only the similarities with Mozambique, but also the development economics and significantly upgraded resource. So it's been a good year. We've added substantial resource to our net position, and we're sitting at about 1.2 billion barrels. But I guess it just hasn't been quite as dramatic as the play opening wells in the first half of last year. You know, we'll see more of that in the second half of this year, but there'll be some play finding exploration layered on that as the rigs start to arrive.
Okay. Well, let's look at Tanzania for a second. We've heard a lot, I think, so far at the conference about Mozambique. Mozambique's the new Qatar, etc. 12 LNG trains. Now you're sitting just above that on the border and hoping, I guess, that the play is a read-through. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're trying to find in Tanzania, what you have found? Is Tanzania the next Mozambique potentially? What do you see?
Well, I mean, I think in terms of the Rovuma Delta, it's exactly the same delta. It's just split halfway across by an international boundary. And it's really for everybody to judge whether or not there's symmetry or not across that delta. But in Mozambique, they've been focusing on very much on the front of the delta, on the basin floor. We've been focusing on the slope so far. We're about to tackle the delta floor. On the slope, we've had a good run. As you said, we haven't had to build a bad well, and so long may that last. And if we kept doing the same thing, we would aggregate more volumes. It's not formalised yet, but we're effectively at 2 trains of LNG, ourselves and BG now, and more of the same will probably deliver more over time. The big question is whether or not there's a second wave of exploration outboard on the basin floor proper, which would be the true symmetry of Mozambique, and we should start to get a feel for that towards the end of this year.
Okay, so we might know by the end of the year whether in the future Tanzania might have to sort of ramp up its production as much as Mozambique seems to be right now.
I mean, I think Mozambique has jumped almost immediately to number 2 or number 3 in the world. Tanzania has the potential to be top 5. Whether it can replicate Mozambique, only time will tell. We're 18 to 24 months behind with the drill bit and the number of wells drilled so far. So give us a couple of years and we'll be able to answer that question.
And do you intend to be a producer of gas? I mean, Ophir is known as an explorer. In terms of the business model for your company going forward, do you have any desire to develop that gas, or do you prefer to be an explorer?
Well, we are by DNA an explorer, a geoscience-led company, and that will be forever our mantra. We're not against production. There's no problem with that at all. But what we are against is parking shareholders' funds significantly into development activity. So that means, therefore, that as we think about how we progress these assets, we may need further partners to enable to get us to the stage of production, or we may need to monetize in different ways.
And outside of Tanzania, we associate Ophir with Tanzania, but you actually have a pretty diverse portfolio all around Africa, West Africa, South Africa. Do you want to tell us a little bit about kind of what's been happening in those other areas? Do you have any other priorities outside of Tanzania? Yeah,
we're active in 10 countries. And we're physically drilling in 5 of those in the next 12 months. And so Tanzania is the backdrop. On top of that, we've got further exploration both in Tanzania on our operated acreage and also in Kenya for liquids potentially. And over in West Africa, we're pretty busy. We're looking to engage a rig so we can start a program across several countries, starting at the end of this year, with Gabon being the initial part of the campaign. 2 plays there, pre-salt Gabon, which is quite dramatic. Partner with Petrobras, big targets. Obviously looking for the conjugate margin analogues, and also an equivalent post-salt or no-salt play, if you like, to the south. So 2 things going on in Gabon. We're about to start drilling in Ghana in about 10 days' time on the transform margin play, and we have more to do in Equatorial Guinea to follow up on our successful discoveries last year.
Good. Finally, you mentioned about the challenging capital markets in 2013. Ophir is one of these companies that's frequently touted as a takeover target. And I was wondering whether you see that as Is that something you dream about? Is that something you have nightmares about in terms of where the share price is right now and how cheap you seem to be compared with where your assets are?
Well, I mean, all independent companies aspire to discover big company assets, and that enables the company to move on in one direction or another. And I think it's indisputable that we have found at least one, arguably two, maybe more, big company assets or assets with big company appeal. So I guess it's inevitable that there will be some speculation. As to whether the share price increases that or decreases it, only time will tell. I mean, I think the fundamental point is that the company is a portfolio, and it's a portfolio that is ranks in the top 5 in terms of deep water acreage around Africa, and in East Africa alone is in the top two in terms of acreage and running room. That is strategically important for the industry. As to what that means for Ophir and its destiny over time, we'll have to see. In the meantime, we get our head down, we're well funded, we'll keep drilling and we'll see where it takes us.
Good, so we'll watch this space then. Finally, before you go, you've been to a couple of these conferences before. What do you get out of coming to an event like this? How does it work for you?
I think in a short space of time it's a great opportunity to meet an awful lot of people. There's obviously a lot of the service providers here, but also a surprisingly high proportion of oil company executives as well. And so it's very useful to keep relationships warm and in a couple of days here you can do the equivalent of that 2 months worth of business development discussions.
So Nick Cooper, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.